What's going on, everybody? This is Emerald Knight Leon back with another deck analysis, and I'm really happy to be covering this because this is the archetype that actually got me my very first place way back in BT-6, and that is D-Brigade. So I've talked about the D-Brigade with Dark Knightmon already. This is a different variation that I wanted to try out that's more about oppression on your opponent and basically not giving them enough time to breathe so that they end up making more reckless moves that will eventually lead you to get to your Dark Dramon and, if needed, go into our new star of the show, our co-host, Omnimon Zwart. So starting off with our Digi Eggs, we are running 2 copies of Sumemon. You could run 3 copies of this. I prefer 2, mainly because I very much enjoy Pagumon's effect. Sumemon, basically, while you have another Digimon in play with the same name as this Digimon, it gets plus 2,000. You're going to love using this on your Commandramon from the starter deck 5, giving him a total of 7,000. If it's on our blocker Commandramon from BT5, he's at 4,000. It's just all around a good time, really. Probably you wouldn't want to use it on Commandramon here, which is what our next Digi-Egg is for. Pagumon. So Pagumon is really useful for combining with our deck searching Commandramon here. The reason for this is because you're allowed to choose which effects are going to go off first. If you had the intention of wanting to sift through your deck to make it easier to get your Commandramon's effect off, you would activate Pagumon first. Otherwise, you would activate Commandramon's first. So how Pagumon is on deletion, reveal the top card of your deck, add it to your hand if it's a black Digimon card, otherwise place it at the bottom. There have been many times where I've used Pagumon's effect first, gotten Dark Dramon out of it, and then used Commandramon's effect, and gotten a Commandramon out of it right then and there. And I wouldn't have been able to get the Commandramon if I hadn't activated Pagumon first. So on to our level 3s. We are running 4 copies of Commandramon, 4 copies of Commandramon, 4 copies of Commandramon, 4 copies of Commandramon, 3 copies of Haguremon, and 2 copies of Chumon. So moving on to our Commandramons, we have the BT3 Commandramon. He's got a 3,000 DP, 2 cost. If you get this in your hand and you're going first, it's really good and easy to choke your opponent to 2 at the start by just Digivolving in your Raising and then hard playing this guy. And then by your next turn, if they can't kill any of your Digimon, you have 2 free swings right there. Our Searching Commandramon, he's a 1,000 DP, a 3 cost. You primarily want to be Digivolving him in your Raising. However, there are times where hard playing him can actually be beneficial because it's baiting your opponent into having to take care of it, because they would rather take care of it themselves than have it swing into security and then get killed, because then they're just losing security at the same time. But this is still beneficial for you. We have our BT5 blocker Commandramon. This one, you're rarely going to use him for blocking. The reason for this is because he doesn't have the caveat of losing 2 memory when attacking. So oftentimes, if you have him out, you're probably going to be using him to attack. Only in the worst case scenario would you use him for blocking. But then we have our starter deck 5 Commandramon. He has no effect, but he's got a nice solid 5,000 DP. He's also some Digimon that you're primarily going to be putting in Raising, except when you have a Memory Fixer out and your opponent doesn't, because then you can just choke them to 1. Moving on to our non-Commandramon combatants, we have 3 copies of Haguremon. Haguremon is here for its draw power and the fact that on play you can trash a Digimon with Machine or Cyborg in its trait to draw 2. Every Commandramon here is a Cyborg. Our Sealsdramon is Cyborg. Mechanori is a machine. Darkdramon, if you were really that desperate, is a Cyborg, I guess. You could do that. The only Digimon in this deck that aren't Cyborgs or machines are Grumblemon, Chumon, and Zwart. So being able to get your D-Brigades into your trash with Haguremon is a great start to the game. Just getting you a good foot into the door to be able to go into your Dark Dramon later. And finally, we have Chumon. Chumon is indispensable. Unfortunately, when I did use this deck, I actually was able to get 6th place with this deck in a tournament just recently, which is why I'm covering this. But I never got a chance to use Chumon. And if I was able to use Chumon, I feel like some things might have been a little easier. But Chumon is your standard memory blocker, I guess we'll call it. Your opponent can't gain memory except with Tamer effects. So all of their memory boost cards, null and void. Pokemon, null and void. Very useful. Moving on to our level 4s, we're running 4 copies of Sealsdramon, 4 copies of Mechanorimon, and 2 copies of Grumblemon. So, Sealsdramon, as usual, is another D-Brigade. He is a blocker. He does have the caveat, unfortunately, of when attacking, lose 2 memory. This isn't a bad thing, actually. There have been times where I've actually clinched victory because I actually attack with Sealsdramon and choke my opponent to 1. Mind you, this was in a previous meta, so Tamers weren't as rampant as they are now, so probably wouldn't work now in this current set. But that is something to think about. We have our 4 copies of Mechanorimon. Mechanorimon is a 4-cost. It has 6,000 DP. It's a 3-cost to Digivolve. It's a blocker. It can't attack, but it restands and unsuspends itself when it survives a battle with an opponent's Digimon. So why do we run 4 of this? Well, we're running 4 of this specifically because outside of Sealsdramon and Grumblemon, Darkdramon, and Zwart, every Digimon here has a play cost of 4 or less. This is why we're running 4 copies of Pride Memory Boost, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. But moving on, we have 2 copies of Grumblemon. Grumblemon is going to be our win condition here. He is a hybrid, so we can Digivolve him off of our Taikamiya or our Izzy and Joe. Moving on to our level 6s, because we're not running level 5s here. 4 copies of Darkdramon. Darkdramon is your D-Brigade. He's your D-Brigade. You're going to return up to 5 D-Brigade cards from your trash to the top of your deck in order to play him for a reduced cost, essentially. It's not actually reducing the cost. What it is you're gaining the memory back. So you need to have 3 memory when you hard play this guy, because it's a 13 cost. So that's going to put your opponent to 10 memory, and then you're going to gain 2 back for each D-Brigade you take and put on top of your deck. And also, he does have Rush, so he can attack the turn he comes out. So if you're able to, if you don't, he can be your win condition as well, but you don't need that because you have our next thing, which is for the long con here, and that is Omnimon Zwart. So some people play Zwart Defeat, and I get that. Some people play Millenniumon. I've done it myself. Zwart here is a card that I actually have been wanting to test out with D-Brigade, and it actually has some good results. So because this is a very oppressive deck for your opponent because you're swarming your field, Zwart is just adding insult to injury, essentially. You're going to Digivolve on top of your Darkdramon, trash the top 3 cards of your deck, which are going to be D-Brigades. And then, so you're setting yourself up for the next Darkdramon. And then, to top that off, you're going to basically be reviving 2 black or purple Digimon cards with play costs of 8 or less from your trash. So if you wanted, you could bring out 2 blocker Commandramons. You could bring out Mechanorimon. You could bring out Sealsdramon. You could bring out Chumon. You could bring out a whole different variety of stuff. You could bring out Hagurimon to use Hagurimon's effect to put more D-Brigades in trash. There's a lot of ways that Zwart can come in handy, but primarily you would want to use him to bring out blockers so that if you're in a tough position or you need to essentially make sure that your area is secure so that your opponent can't go for a win, your blockers are what you're going to bring out. And that's why we're running 2 copies of him. He also has the benefit of, when attacking, return 1 level 6 card in this Digimon's Digivolution cards to the owner's hand to delete one of your opponent's unsuspended Digimon with a play cost of 12 or less. If you don't have a second Darkdramon in hand, you're getting that Darkdramon back so that you can just replay him in a few turns because you've already discarded 3 D-Brigade cards. So there's a lot of ways you can just loop this around a bit if you needed for a couple turns. Onto our options. We are running 4 Iron Fisted Onslaughts and 4 Pride Memory Boosts. So, originally I was running 2 copies of Iron Fist Onslaught and 2 copies of Ultimate Flare. I felt Ultimate Flare just really wasn't getting the job done, and I preferred taking care of my opponent's heavy hitters because oftentimes they're the ones that have the majority of the security checks. So being able to take care of them right away and stopping their checks right then and there is very useful. But also, moving on, we have 4 Pride Memory Boosts, which is indispensable in this deck. So how it works is reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. You may play 1 black Digimon card with a play cost of 4 or less among them without paying its cost, and then trash the remaining cards and then put this into your battle area. And then it has the delay effect of gain 2 memory. This is amazing because this is going to just be able to get you a free summon out of the majority of your deck. And whatever you don't pick goes to your trash. Now, that can be bad sometimes. You could get a Tamer and 1 Digimon, a Tamer, and an option card. And those are going to go to your trash, which is, it sucks, but oh well. But being able to get that free body out there can be very useful. Moving on, we have Tai Kamiya as our Tamer. We're running 3 copies of him. Now, the reason we're running this over Izzy is mainly because while Izzy is good, I get more use out of Tai. And the reason is I would prefer not to gain the memory off of Izzy from his effect. And Tai, during your opponent's turn, all of your black Digimon get plus 1000, which is really useful when you're running blockers like Mechanori, as they are going to be able to swing over level 5s eventually. And I've mentioned this in my D-Brigade Dark Knightmon video. We'll also be running 2 copies of Izzy and Joe, basically because your opponent's probably going to swarm their field with hybrids. You're going to get that 2 extra memory. It's going to be very useful. But that is it for the deck. Now, moving on to our tech cards, which now are deciding to be very difficult. All right, so there we go. There we go. So, moving on to our tech cards. Possibility, well, we've talked about it in our previous video. You could be running the Dark Knightmon package with the Monitamon, Skull Knightmon, Deadly Axe, and Dark Knightmon. Otherwise, Chikurimon is an option if you wanted to try to get it through your security. It rarely ever worked for me, so I'm not really a believer of it. But otherwise, if you wanted to go more old school, there is Tankdramon. Basically, when one of your other Digimon with D-Brigade and its type is deleted, you reveal the top 2 cards of your deck and play 1 Commandramon from among them without paying its play cost, and then the remaining go to the bottom. I would prefer this effect if the other card goes to trash, because if you pull 2 Commandramons, one's going to go to trash, making it easier for Darkdramon. I get why they didn't do that, though. As for level 6s, Crescaroo could work. I'm pretty sure that there was in an old meta, Crescaroo was used a lot with D-Brigade because of its when Digivolving effect. So how it is reveal 1 card from the top of your deck for each Digimon your opponent has in play. You may play 1 black or red Digimon with a play cost of 4 or less among them without paying its memory cost, and then place the remaining at the bottom of your deck in any order. That could be very useful in this exact deck because the majority of cards you have outside of your level 6 and 7 have a play cost of 5 or less. So being able to get blockers out incredibly fast in the case that you need it is very useful. The issue is we don't have level 5s. So you would have to make some room in the deck for level 5s like maybe Wateremanzemon, as it has a play cost of 5, which would also be useful for it, or Tankdramon. But I feel like Wateremanzemon is actually the way to go because of that 5 play cost. As for our possible level 7s you could tech in, Millenniumon, as I've said before, it's a great card back in BT-6. A lot of first place winning D-Brigade decks used it. You return one card of your opponent's Digimon to the bottom of their deck, and then if this card on deletion had Digivolution cards, you can play this card from your trash without paying its memory cost. Very solid card. Also, Omnimon Alter S is an option. Basically, for its trigger D, Digivolve 1 on all of your opponent's Digimon, and then delete all of your opponent's Digimon with 5,000 DP or less. This card is a nightmare to go against when you're running D-Brigade. But with D-Brigade, it could actually come in handy. Also, it does also have the extra benefit of when attacking, you may make this Digimon unblockable for the turn by returning one of its level 6 Digivolution cards to your hand. So you can just bring Darkdramon back to your hand. As for our options, there's Dark Roar. Personally, I don't feel Dark Roar is very good for this. Ultimate Flare, as I've mentioned. And then Gewalt Schwarmer. Gewalt Schwarmer, I get it. I get why people would use it in D-Brigade, because you're killing off your own D-Brigade. I don't agree with it, because I would rather get the security checks in than just... and then maybe use Gewalt Schwarmer. Not just use Gewalt Schwarmer right away. Finally, there's Black Memory Boost, which is just searching your deck and Izzy. Revealing top 3 cards of your deck. If all of them are black, gain 1 memory. That would basically put you to 0, which means there's a higher chance of you putting your opponent to a more advantageous memory count. But that is it for this video. Honestly, I'm really happy with how my D-Brigade deck did last night at a tournament. I went to DXN Provisions, and it was I had a great time there. But definitely going to have to get ready for another tournament soon. On to some other things. Unfortunately, I was not able to get registered for the Ultimate Cup because they were sold out in under a minute. Which is just, I don't know. I might make a video about it, just to vent, but I was able to get onto the wait list for Carte Magica. So if I am able to get into the event, then I will most likely, 90% sure, live stream it. Otherwise, that's just going to be a free weekend, I guess. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you think about this deck, because D-Brigade has always been a favorite deck of mine, you know. And again, I do have a PayPal donation on the channel description, as well as on my Twitch channel. Sending whatever money, even if it's $1, even if it's a couple dollars, it's always beneficial. It helps me go to all of the tournaments that I'm able to go to, because I go out of my way to go to a lot of different tournaments to get the data I need for these videos. If you want to know what decks I went against for last night with D-Brigade, the first round was against Yellow Hybrid, which I 2-1'd. The second round was against a Myotismon Dan Devi deck, which I was able to 2-0. Third round, which was the final round, unfortunately, was against Blue Hybrid, which I was only able to 1-2. So that's how I got 6th place, because there was a total of 6 undefeated people there. But yeah, no, again, being able to go to all these tournaments is really, really great for me. It helps me make this content to really get a good feel for these decks in different environments. But it is getting expensive, and I've heard that the gas prices are slowly starting to come down, which is great. But whatever help anybody is able to give, that'd be great. Again, I hope everyone has a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.